Hey, hey, beautiful soul. Welcome back to the Awakening Her podcast. How's it going, friend? My name is Talia Joy, and I am so excited to dive into this episode today. But first, how are you? How are you, friend? Whether this is a good day or a hard day or an exciting day or a challenging day, however you're dropping in today, hello, hello. I am so honored to spend this time with you. I am sending you love, and I hope that this episode today serves you. Welcome home. Okay, so we're talking about being in this perfection wheel, right? So the last couple episodes for the last couple episodes, I've been talking about this balance and really how to stay on our path without it being all or nothing and what balance really means and how to look after ourselves. So we're talking about this more today, and we're going to talk about the 80-20 rule, which you've probably heard before. If not, of course, I'll explain all about what it is and how in some ways it's like a magical balance of life. But I'm also going to talk about how to navigate the 20%. And again, we'll get there when we get there. So first of all, many of us have been stuck in the cycle or in a pattern of trying to do it all perfectly. Eating clean 100% of the time, doing your Monday, Wednesday, Friday workouts 100% of the time, sticking to a routine every day, showing up in alignment 24/7. It's like this is this idea that we have. And it's exhausting, isn't it? Right? So I want to say that that is not balance. 24/7 go, go, go is not balance. Expecting yourself to be in spring or summer all the time is not balance. Eating salads 24/7 is even nutritionally not balance. So it's not about striving for perfection. As I've been saying, if you've listened to the last few episodes and any time I talk about this, it's never about perfection. Perfection isn't even real. It's finding your balance, finding balance overall. So before we dive in, I just want to take a minute to acknowledge where you're at. And maybe you're feeling stuck right now. Maybe you're in one of those 20% moments where you feel like you're not on it, you're not doing it all. And sometimes in that time, it's harder to see the bigger picture. Or maybe you're just tired. I see this a lot in clients and in my community, tired of trying so hard and trying to just keep it all together. And dude, I get that for real. I genuinely get that. Even having a business and posting on social media, I'll probably talk about it coming up, but I'm not going to be on Instagram as much anymore. I'm just going to do it genuinely if I want, when I want, to continue to touch base, to continue to offer you nuggets where you take a deep breath and go like, okay, in the noise of all the social media stuff. But it's exhausting to strive for every reel to be picture perfect and to always have the perfect thing to say and to, take video of every moment of every point in my life. And that's exhausting. So for you, perfection or feeling like you have to do it all, it might be in your health, in your business, in your life in general. There might be one aspect, or maybe it's everything where you really find that you slip into thinking you have to be perfect and you try so hard to have it seem like everything's together or to be doing all the things all the time. Again, I get you. And so we're going to shift that. We're going to talk about it. So let's just dive in. I mentioned in the last couple episodes, we have the Manifestation Training Library, the whole Talia Joy Training Library on sale right now. There are trainings on everything from inner child healing to daily practice to achieving your goals to money manifestation, deeper healing, manifestation practices. There's meditations, there are trainings on self-love, self-devotion. There's so much over there. It's literally like if you just want to be able to binge my stuff at any time beyond the podcasts, this is a beautiful place to do that. It's called the Talia Joy Training Library, sometimes called the Manifestation Training Library. And I'll leave the link below. Right now it's on sale for $47 and it has over $1,000 of value in there. Workbooks, official trainings, meditations, all the things. So you can check that out below in the show notes. And as I said, because I am on social media less, if you do want to come find me at Talia Joy Manifestation, I would love to see you over there. However, if you really want to stay in the loop with everything me, you want to hear the real me, the background, the literally like unfiltered, this is where to find me is right here on the podcast and or joining on The Path, which is my private community, another podcast, but it's got a different tone to it. It's more about implementing the work, about me being your mentor, being your coach, offering you tools and practices and deep dives, all with the focus of you moving forward and really moving your life forward week by week, day by day, month by month. So the link to that is below as well. It's called On the Path. And that is now really everything I wanted to say. So let's dive into the episode. Grab your beverage, whether it's a matcha latte or your favorite herbal tea, maybe a big glass of water, and let's dive in. Hey, beautiful soul. Welcome to the Awakening Her podcast. I am so grateful that you've been led here, and I'm so excited for you that you're answering the call to manifest more magic in your life. My name is Talia Joy, and I am committed to showing you exactly how to manifest more excitement, ease, success, abundance, confidence, love, and anything else you've been craving. So if you're ready to go on a magical journey of spiritual and self-growth to manifest the life you're meant for, we are now besties. Let's dive in. Okay, so let's start with this idea of balance. What does balance mean to you in this place in time right now in your life? Maybe it's changed over the last few years or months. Maybe you've listened to the previous podcast episodes and the idea of balance has shifted. What does it really mean to you? So for a lot of us, and myself in the past, I really did think that it meant doing everything all the time or everything being in perfect harmony all the time. And, I looked at it like if I was in alignment, I'm eating all the right foods, I'm meditating every morning, I'm exercising consistently, and I'm just like nailing it, checking boxes, doing all the things every day. And that is not the way that life goes. In life, even if you are a quote unquote perfect person, and even if you mastered your vibration every single day, things are still going to happen. We all experience grief. We experience stress, changes in the economy, changes in politics, changes in our family. People come and go, things end and start. So no matter what, life is ebbing and flowing. And balance isn't 100% all the time. If you want me to, of course, I'm going to continue talking about this, but if you want to go deeper, listen to the Balance is a Sham episode, which was, I think, 2 episodes ago. But what I want to talk about today is the 80-20 rule. And you've probably heard about this, maybe with health or maybe with something else. But the 80-20 rule teaches us that life is not about perfection. It's about spending approximately 80% of the time aligned with your values, your goals, your authentic self, or at least striving to spend that energy there, at least trying to be open, trying to meet yourself with compassion, all that stuff, 80% of the time, while giving yourself outrageous amounts of grace, which I'll talk about more in a second, 20% of the time. So really, even health is eating, your whole foods, the foods that feel good in your body, getting lots of water, vitamins, nutrients, all the things, 80% of the time. And then enjoying cake, 20%. Having a beer or enjoying, pasta or whatever it is that you don't normally enjoy. And even the example of food, as a lot of you know, I came from an eating disorder that really did completely take over my life for quite a long time. It was very much ingrained in me. And that 20% was like, oh, it sounds good. But then when I'm eating the cupcake or I'm eating the chips, especially in that time, I would just guilt and shame myself. And it was like in the moment, I felt like I had to be all or nothing, 100%. And even being healthy at that time, I was like, that's not 80-20, healthy is 100%. And I just don't see it that way. So for you, your 20%, if it's something like food, could be, maybe it's a little bit more processed, or maybe it's, not organic, or maybe it is alcohol or dessert. You give yourself a little bit of room for things that it's not about being good or bad. It's about maybe they don't ultimately feel good. Like if you were to drink every day, if you were to eat, that cheesecake or whatever every day or whatever, it wouldn't feel good, but you give yourself that wiggle room. So this applies right across the board. And if this resonates with you, I invite you to look at it in different areas of your life as like an 80-20. So I think about even with money, like 80% of my money pretty much is going toward things that are, planned. It's quote unquote responsible, meaning there's mortgage and there's investments and there's, bills and whatever. Like 80% of my money, even if it's like putting away in savings for this or reinvesting in myself for that, it's like intentional and I'm with my finances and I'm like, on it. And then 20% of the time, or whatever it is, approximately 20, it's fine to like, oh, go get an unplanned lunch or buy yourself this brand new coat for fall or, get a coffee or whatever it is, right? We have to live a little bit because 80% is still a lot of the time. That's still for things like health, like that's huge. And if someone's coming from feeling quote unquote unhealthy, 80% is a lot. So we're still striving. We're still looking to be mindful. We still want to be moving our body and, journaling and doing these things that feel good in our life. We want to aim to do them most days. And I used to say that a lot. And I still say this like to myself, and I'm sure it comes out here, but I always say like being really consistent-ish or Monday, Wednesday, Friday-ish, or I want to meditate 3-ish days a week. And the reason why I say that is because of this 80-20 rule. So I do meditate about 3 days a week, but sometimes it's way less or sometimes it's more. And that too is balance. So 80% of the time, having the intention to be aligned with what is true to you, aligned with your authentic self, aligned with micro actions and energy that moves you in a forward direction. Even if that's self-care, self-compassion, going on a walk, talking yourself off a ledge when you're feeling, anxiety creeping in, whatever, that's reaching for the light. 80% of the time, reaching for the light, intending for the light, being the light. And 20% of the time, it's not even that it's dark, it's just free space. Like, even in my work day, it's approximately like that, where I have a bunch of stuff I need to do and I leave space for nothingness. I may have a day shower, I may go on another walk, take the dog out, or I might get into a creative project, or maybe I want to stop and have a longer lunch. I have to give myself space. So when we really look at this 80-20, and first of all, realizing it's 80-20-ish as well, right? Some things are 10, some things are 30, but it's really about that more or less, we've got our feet in the light. And every once in a while, we enjoy the things that, aren't aligned with our perfect future self. So even, for example, I've talked a lot here about health and nutrition. And since I've been recovered, and I mean, nutrition's always been really important to me, but even now we eat organic, we eat really clean, blah, blah, blah. And that's what feels good on my body. So I want to talk about, this isn't about what I should do. And it's not about what you should do. It's aligned with the authentic self. So what feels really good on my body are simple earth foods, meaning foods that are one ingredient, whether it's, a vegetable, rice, potatoes, meat, whatever, right? Food that's one ingredient, simple earth food feels really good on my body. Sometimes I just really want like some cheesies, or as I talk about, my chocolate. And even the chocolate I choose, it still feels good on my body because I'm really selective. But sometimes there's stuff that doesn't feel good in my body. Maybe it's summer and we go and get ice cream with the kids, and ice cream like doesn't really feel that great. Those are those times when we go, let's just breathe a little, right? Have a scoop of ice cream and just relax. And even in that relaxing, in that like right now I'm having ice cream and it's a family moment with the kids, or I'm sitting with a friend, or I'm with my husband, whatever, this family moment is part of the good experience as well. It's not just about eating yams 24/7 and kale that you'll then have a good life. Like, enjoy the moment, right? And so sometimes the moment calls for a glass of wine, or you have, something that even if you wouldn't eat that every day, you just let yourself loosen up. So you get the idea, right? The next thing I want to talk about is when you zoom out, the overall impression is what matters. And I want you to think of like a big, beautiful painting. Not every single tiny little brush stroke, as a tongue twister, needs to be perfect. for the painting to be stunning. And in fact, especially abstract painting or even whatever, even realistic, when you zoom in really close, there's like some technical, like a brushstrokes over here, or this kind of zoomed in doesn't have the full picture, right? Obviously. So when you zoom out, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, I could think of Van Gogh like that, zoomed way in. It would be like, what is this like patchy, different, layers, whatever. But you zoom out and you're like, oh my goodness, this is so beautiful. So in your life, when you zoom out, that's what matters. And when you focus on, getting better and better with your health or walking or journaling or whatever it is for you, even money, whatever, you'll end up putting about 80% of your devotion, your time, your all of that into it. And then 20% of the time, let yourself breathe as I'm talking. And when you zoom out, when you look back on your life, you're going to go, you know what? I really did do a good job. I really did do a good job. I really did try most of the time, like I made my way through. But even in that 80-20 rule, sometimes there are years that are in the 20%, or weeks that are in the 20%, or months. It's not even all about the minutes in the day or the days of the week. You want to really zoom out and go, what is balance? It's when you zoom out and you see that overall, you're doing a really frickin' good job. You are moving your life forward, and focus more on, intending for the 80% and giving yourself grace for the 20, rather than focusing on trying to be 100%. So now what I need to talk about, which was a big inspiration behind making this episode, it's actually the core of why I decided to make this episode. I want to talk about navigating those 20%, okay? So we're going to get real. When your hand is in the bag of chips, or when you haven't worked out in a week, or when you binge spent a bunch of money that you didn't plan on, okay? We're going to talk about the 20%. These are the moments when you are either not, or you feel like you're not in quote unquote alignment. You haven't been eating foods that are great on your body, or as I said, you're like mid, chip snack. Maybe you're skipping workouts, you haven't been to yoga in a while, you're feeling like you might be in a funk, or you're just had a couple days where you're like, oh crap, I haven't journaled in like 4 days. This is part of balance, really. It's not about avoiding these moments, but how you navigate them. When you're in the moment, that too is an assignment. So first of all, I want you, when you're in the thick of it, and if right now there's a part of your life where like you haven't been quote unquote on the wagon, I want you to first and foremost zoom out. When you're in the thick of it, remind yourself that this is just one of those moments in the bigger picture of life, where you feel a little lost, or you ate a little more trans fats, or you haven't been moving as much. It's not even a hiccup. It's actually part of it. You're not meant to be perfectly aligned all the time. The 20% is there to give you contrast, to help you recalibrate. Spiritually, it's there to help you mirror back. It's help you to feel the cause and effect of your actions. It's there to make you be able to experience life from both sides. So I may have gone way off and lost some people there, but the 20% is important. It's there to even teach you something, give you a day or two or hours where you're not focused all the time on like self-growth and this and that. I notice that in the day I'm really productive and I'm really learning. And if I have a drive in the day, I'm usually listening to a podcast that's engaging or expanding, or it's something about business. But then it gets to be a point like 4 or 5 o'clock where I don't want to do any of that. I don't want to be knee deep in like analyzing and moving forward and planning. I almost, if I were to be on my phone, I want to watch like a true crime thing, or I want to go for a walk and actually not be thinking about business. I want to have a shower and just focus on my body and something different. Like I don't always want to be moving forward all the time. And in that 20%, I am also moving forward. And we're going to dive deeper into that in a second. So the first thing to do in those 20% moments is to zoom out and remind yourself that this is one moment in the bigger picture. Okay, the second thing to do when you're in those 20% is to pause and check in. So all those examples I gave about what could be quote unquote off track, or you're just like resisting or avoiding or whatever. So we ask ourselves, pause, check in, take a deep breath and say like, what do I need right now? And sometimes the answer isn't to fix it immediately. Sometimes you need rest. Sometimes you need compassion. If I'm at the end of my day and I'm wanting to either have a walk and not think about business, or if I'm driving and I want to zone out on something that's not quote unquote productive, I just go, what do I need right now? I need to zone out. I need to just be off. That's okay too. The same way that if you're a parent, it's healthy, like you're in mom or dad mode 80% of the time, especially if your kids are young. But then 20% of the time, you need a breather, even if that sometimes is 5% of the time. Like go for a walk by yourself, have a shower without somebody coming in the door, have a weekend away. It's important. So pause, check in, and ask yourself, what do I need? And if you're in the middle of eating chips, you could go, I just want to eat these chips and enjoy this movie or whatever, and go, okay, compassion. It's okay. Just let yourself be. Let yourself be is such a key of that 20%. And then the third thing, I'm going to recommend 4 things you can do in those 20%. The third thing is to reframe any guilt that's coming up. Okay. Let's just call it what it is, put it out on the table instead of beating yourself up. Saying to yourself, this is what I say to myself, this is part of balance. This is what balance looks like. This is what balance feels like. I say to myself, oh, it's good to have balance, but then the hand is in the bag of chips, or I haven't worked out in 3 days, and then guilt myself? No, wait, I knew this was coming. I knew this was part of the plan. This is part of balance. It's okay to have moments like this. This is how I come back to alignment. This is how I discover what works and what doesn't work. This is how I get to have chips, even in my dream life, because there is room for that. And you're not going to be radically unhealthy if you have a treat every once in a while. If you, indulge in a way that feels good and then just get back to what you're doing. It's all good. So reframing guilt by saying this is what balance looks like. And then the fourth thing that you can do in that 20% is to make small shifts back if you really do feel like, okay, I'm going off the rails, meaning now I haven't worked out in a week, and usually I do very consistently. Then we just go, okay, again, what do I need? You know what? I feel like I need to move my body. Okay, what's a small thing we can do to bring ourselves back? Maybe it's bringing a big bottle of water and going for a slow walk so you feel like more hydrated, more connected to nature. Maybe it's doing some yoga at home or booking a class tonight, spending 5 minutes journaling, having a present shower where you're like, okay, coming back into my body. Like little things we can do in those 20% to come back when it starts to feel like it's more than 20%, right? So the 2 more things I want to say before we start to wrap up this episode. I want to bring it back to the grace and the compassion, which, as I said, was the point of making this episode, was like, how do we navigate that 20% when we feel off, when we feel like we're self-sabotaging and we're this and we're that? Even saying you're self-sabotaging is somewhat like putting guilt on yourself. What that quote unquote self-sabotage is showing you is I desire to be somewhere else. I desire to put my energy over here into my health, into my self-care or whatever it is that's going on. So grace and compassion are so essential. I used to live in guilt, and self-criticism. And they do not bring you back to alignment. They do not make you better. They do not make you create the perfect plan that is somehow going to rescue you. If anything, they pull you farther away. Grace and compassion are the best tools for navigating the 20%. And even in grace, that says like acceptance. Like I'm being grace with myself. I'm letting it be. I'm accepting. I'm meeting myself with openness. When you're in those moments, remind yourself this is temporary. I'm human. Balance doesn't mean perfection. I love me. I support me. Balance means being kind to myself. Balance means letting myself just have the freedom to be sometimes and then coming back when I'm ready. I know so many times when I would let the 20% spiral into weeks or months of feeling stuck simply because I was beating myself up for being out of alignment. Whereas if I just breathe through it, ate the frickin' cupcake, it's like metaphoric because the areas of life weren't with food, but times when I would avoid exercise or I'd be stuck in business. But the narrative is, what's wrong with me? Why am I doing this? What's wrong with me? And I would beat myself up, and it kept me there. So when I finally gave myself permission to just be, when I finally saw I was in a sacred pause, when I needed some space without judgment, it started to shift. And then I naturally was able to realign with love or going for walks instead of forcing it from a place of guilt. So grace and compassion will actually help you move through it faster. And when you're in the 20%, grace and compassion helps you to stay just in the 20%. So it doesn't become 50 or 100, right? So grace and compassion instead of guilt and self-criticism, that is essential. So the last thing I'm going to touch on before we wrap up is coming back to the power of zooming out. So when you step back and look at the bigger picture of your life, I want to ask you, what do you see? If you're looking at yourself through the lens of grace and compassion and you look back at your life, what do you see? Chances are the moments when you felt out of alignment, looking back, didn't actually sabotage your whole life. Maybe they actually taught you something. Or maybe it's been part of your messy path that no matter what, you haven't given up. And how we've all seen that little graph or a graph that says, or it's like an image that says like how people view perfection or success. And it's like a solid arrow going up. And it's like what success really looks like. And it's like a tangled ball of yarn, basically, right? So maybe when you look back, you look at those times when you were like beating yourself up and you were so out of alignment, but you look back and go, that actually taught me so much. My life has been filled with bends and turns and ups and downs. And frankly, and now I'm talking for me, I've never felt perfect. I've never felt in the pocket, no matter what, nothing, like always there, always eating kale. Like it's been such an up and down journey with everything, with self-love, with money, with business, with health, with confidence, with my own goals, relationships, everything. But when I zoom way out, was that not part of the full picture? So how can you give yourself permission to have grace in those 20% moments? And what does 80% look like? So looking back, chances are the times you felt out of alignment were just parts of your journey, right? And so I encourage you to start thinking about your own 80-20 balance. What does it actually look like? Being an observer or being like a kind bestie to yourself, like just not judging yourself, not criticizing right now what you're doing or not doing. Just what does 80% look like to you? What is 80% growth minded or, spiritual minded or whatever? What does 80% look like to you? What is 20%? What is that 20%? If you had full on permission, if I was source myself and I said to you, you could get incredibly healthy by eating 20% of the time, whatever you wanted. And 80% of the time, you will find your way to eat, foods your body understands, foods that are full of nutrition. But 20% of the time, you can eat whatever you want. And you go like, oh my goodness. It's almost like the actual gold in like the quote unquote cheat day, which I don't agree with just from my history and it never worked for me. But what I mean by that is that you can still be healthy while going like, oh yeah, every Friday I have an ice cream cone, but you could still have a 6-pack. You could still, be incredibly fit or lean or whatever if you like let yourself have whatever some of the time, right? So anyway, I encourage you to reflect on your own 80-20. What does 80% look like? What does 20% look like? And remember, it's not about avoiding the 20%. It's about knowing it's part of the process. This is what balance looks like. Okay, beautiful soul, I'm going to start wrapping this up, but I want you to take this with you. Balance is not about being perfect. I know you've heard it a lot in here, but once you go into your everyday life, you'll be grateful that you heard it 20 million times. It's about living in alignment 80% of the time and having outrageous amounts of radical grace for the other 20. So take some time today or this week to reflect on your own 80-20 balance. Maybe journal about what alignment feels like for you, what nutrition looks like 80% and 20%. Like, what does your quote unquote higher self eat, yourself in 3 months, your, aligned self? What does she eat there? And what does she eat for the 20 or he? What do they eat for the 20%? What do they really enjoy? That's why I always say I love my chocolate. And I don't think I have to get rid of that. I don't believe in that. I don't live in a world where I can't have my chocolate, but I also live in a world where I love grilling veggies and eating organic. That's my 80-20. So journal about what it looks like for you in different areas of life. And above all, have huge amounts of compassion for yourself through the whole journey, especially when you're in that 20%. Okay, love, I hope that this has resonated with you and helps you on your journey. And if it has, share it with a like-minded friend. Share the love. You guys can talk about it together. You can embrace your Buddha bowls, and then you can go out for dessert together and talk about how this is balance. Okay, my love, I hope that you have a great day. I will see you in the next episode. And don't forget to check the show notes for all the things I mentioned, the training library, On the Path, other programs, etc. And I will see you later. Talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. And before we go, I want to ask you a question. Have you grabbed your copy yet of Manifest This Shit? Manifest This Shit is a law of attraction coloring and activity book available on Amazon, and I am so excited about it. It is packed with beautiful, inspiring coloring pages, manifestation practices, tools, places to make notes and lists and write down your intuitive hits. There's so many beautiful pages in there. It's the perfect addition to your daily practice. So whether you use it to pass time instead of being on your phone, or you use it as a creative ritual, this book has pages for everybody. I know you're going to love it. So grab Manifest This Shit on Amazon. The link is below in the show notes.